Hello, beautiful community. Jordan Peterson is plastered all over the internet asking college kids, what do you mean by believe? And some of you have asked me to comment on this, and I wasn't going to, but I now will, because this is actually tied to things that really matter to us. It's tied to a phrase that will resonate in the back of your heads if you've been following me long enough, and that's that democracies do not survive, bang, 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 unless they are tethered to the practiced virtue of truthfulness. And what JP was trying to do with the college kids is detach belief from truthfulness and detach truthfulness from the question of what it means to keep democracy on the road. And we'll ask what the consequences are at the end of this little chat for democracy if we give up on the idea of getting the world right. But first, let's just do a little bit of elementary role playing, because what would have happened if Jordan was speaking to, let's not say a professional philosopher, let's say a robust professional philosopher, that he would have been eaten alive in that conversation that's gone viral. But not eaten alive aggressively unless the person on the other side was also fragile like Jordan. So what would a mature, robust philosopher have done with Jordan there? Well, I don't know, but let's just play along what I would have done. Because I feel protective about Jordan, because of his fragility, I would have held his hand and said, Jordan, you've asked the question. Now, the difference between boys and men is that men know how to shut up. So you'll shut up now for 2 or 3 minutes and actually tell you something about my view of belief. Are you listening, Jordan? You're nicely tucked in. Okay, good. So let's get belief right. And this is not just commentary on Jordan Peterson. This is something that goes to the core of what we need in our discourse to keep our democracy. We do not want a relativistic idea of belief dominating our public discourse. Now, my view of belief is that the central feature of it is that it aims at truth. And that in fact, it's not just a problem, but a catastrophic problem for belief if it turns out to be false. If we get evidence that indicates that our belief is false, we either have to suppress the evidence or dilute our beliefs, or, as is common in practice, to just experience our beliefs halfway breaking down and retreating into the subconscious. So when I say that beliefs aim at truth, I mean several things by that. First, I mean that to grasp the concept of belief, you need to grasp the distinction between true and false. Second, I mean that to grasp the concept of belief, you need a distinction between something being held true and something being actually true. And the third thing you need to understand is the special relationship belief has to assertion. Not all assertions can be beliefs, because you can go around the certain things you don't believe. But all beliefs can be assertions about what is the case in the world. And when I say, I believe that Mr. Putin invaded Ukraine, I am, in the first instance, actually not saying, I believe Putin invaded Ukraine. I am actually, in the first instance, saying, Putin invaded Ukraine. So that's the first and central feature of beliefs, that they aim at truth. A second very important feature of beliefs is that they are formed under social and historical pressure. And a feature of that is that beliefs are permanently at risk of being victims of the pressure for self-deception, of the pull towards self-deception, which is as universal a trait as any that human beings have. So beliefs aim at truth, and they arise under condition of social historical pressures that push humans into self-deception by default. Well, now, if we've put that on the table, what's the contrast with Peterson? What's going on with Peterson? And I think that Peterson, not being a professional philosopher, but having a few toes in that world, doesn't actually have a fully fledged position on what a belief is. I don't think he has a developed position about that. I think he has a few instincts about it, and his few instincts are way more reflective than what most of his interlocutors come up with, and so they will do. But if Putin's, see, this is what it feels like, endlessly talking about the tyrant in the Kremlin. If we say to Peterson, develop your view of beliefs for us, he wouldn't be able to. He doesn't actually have a fully fledged view there. So it's a set of instincts. What are the instincts? The instincts take Peterson in a direction of a pragmatist view, which says that statements that are true are statements that pay their way, blended with a kind of conservative ethical nostalgia. So Peterson's position is a kind of a pragmatist conservative ethical nostalgia. So that means that for him, a belief is true, or true enough, or appropriate without needing to be true, if it serves certain purposes, like being conducive to order, being conducive to spiritual navigation of the world, being conducive to various processes of meaning formation, as you might say. And by extension, if self-deception for me is getting the world wrong, self-deception for Peterson is not having an adequate relationship with the suffering and misery and beauty and transcendence and meaning and other mock metaphysical concepts out there in the world. What does the Peterson position lose here? What it loses is what you inevitably lose when you detach yourself from truthfulness, is the capacity for social critique. Let's say that Peterson says X is good to believe. Now, of course, he would recognize that you can't decide to believe. Belief is not an application of willpower. But nevertheless, he might say X is good to believe because it is conducive to certain social goods. But Ricky might come along and say, well, actually, I think the opposite. How do you arbitrate between these two positions? You can't arbitrate between them successfully without referencing the matter of getting the world right versus getting the world wrong. Likewise, if I, as a victim of unjust arrangements in the world, make a claim against these arrangements, let's say I've been made unfree by my political system, or I've been unfairly treated by my political system. And I make a claim. Unless we have the notion of truthfulness, that it's going to be no way of distinguishing my complaint about power being exercised over me in a way I don't like from itself being just one more expression of application of power. If I'm sent to jail, that's a power exercise over me. If I critique me being sent to jail because it violates my human rights, that's just one more power exercise, unless we have the concept of truthfulness. You let go of that concept, you let go of social critique. And so the infantile view is that holding beliefs is about making something good happen. The mature view is that holding beliefs is about getting the world right. And it's the mature view, sufficiently sustained in social discourse, on which the sustenance of democracy depends. Now, Peterson's pragmatist conservative ethical nostalgia position is welcome. I don't want to stop him expressing it, but it's wrong-headed. But that's not all there is to it. Very transparently, with Peterson, there is another fault in the way he talks about this, and that's psychological. Because his intellectualization is too transparently a form of self-rescue. Right? What you're seeing there is defense against disorder that he finds unbearable, evasion of something very, very important. We're very passionate on the channels here: affection toward your opponents, making sure that your opponents in some respects can feel safe with you and therefore can cooperate with you, therefore tomorrow can become your allies, and a kind of inability to tolerate the possibility of being surprised. So note how much in the world you find this issue, that people's intellectual positions are actually a form of self-rescue. That's the psychological stuff. But the basic, elementarily philosophical stuff is that beliefs aim at truth. And if you're going to propose an alternative, you're going to have a problem being right, and you're going to have a problem keeping your democracy. Lots of love.